What is up, guys? Welcome back to another UFC prediction video. UFC 315 is this weekend, Belal versus JDM. Without any further ado, we're going to go ahead and get right into the full card picks. Kind of a shit card, but that's what you can expect whenever they go to Canada. First fight on the card, we got Katona versus Almakhan. Almakhan made his UFC debut versus Umar. Clipped him in the first round with a right hand, but then just got absolutely dominated for the rest of the fight. Held down on the mat, elbowed to shit. To be fair, Umar is the best bantamweight on the planet, so you can't really take away from him for that. But, still got dominated. He looked all right on the regional scene, but we really just haven't seen that much from him. Katona, on the other hand, very experienced fighter. He's been around a long time, has won the Ultimate Fighter twice in his second UFC run. Was able to beat Cody Gibson, did lose to Garrett Armfield, beat Jesse Butler, and last time out, had an absolute fucking scrap. Really good war with John Matsumoto. Looked good in that fight as well. He's well-rounded, very technical, high fight IQ. He's got good takedown entries as well, good control. And I think he's going to be able to win this fight very similarly to how he won against Jesse Butler, just holding him down, controlling him. And, we saw Almakhan struggle with that against Umar. Very different level of competition. But give me Katona. He trains at SBG. He's been at a high level for his entire career. Beksat is just now stepping into this. I think Katona is going to be much more prepared. And yeah, I don't know how he's the underdog here. Give me Katona by 30-27. Next fight on the card, we got Daniel Santos versus Jung Young Lee. Jung Young Lee, last time out, did get knocked out versus Haider Emil. Just in an absolute slugfest. They just slugged for like 30 seconds. And then Haider got the best of it. But, Lee is a good fighter. He was able to beat Blake Bilder. That's a decent win. Daniel Santos coming into this one off of a 2-fight win streak off of, I believe it was John Castaneda and Munoz. But he's a good fighter out of shoot to box, well-rounded. Both of these guys are decently well-rounded. But I'm going to pick Daniel Santos. Both of these guys are kind of at the lower echelon of the division. Not super, super talented. And Daniel Santos, he's surrounded himself with good training partners. You got Charles, Damian Maia, Ian Gary. You got to imagine he's training at a high level. And, I rate what he's done in the UFC a little bit more than Jung Young Lee. So give me Daniel Santos to win this via 29-28 decision. Next fight on the card, we got Marc-Andre Barriault versus Bruno Silva. I'm going to be picking Marc-Andre Barriault to get the job done here. We've seen him, scrap with Chris Curtis last time out. Hasn't been too good for him. He did get knocked out badly versus Stoltzfus and Joe Pyfer, so we know the chin is definitely, hindered badly at this point. He's very chinny. He's taken a lot of damage. I know he's even been knocked out before then. I'm forgetting them at this point. But Bruno Silva, he's been looking like absolute dog shit. In his last fight versus Ismail Nurdiev, he looked horrible. I mean, literally did not throw any strikes, got completely fucking obliterated, and didn't even try. So that is when I stopped picking fighters forever and then just completely write them off. Kind of similarly to Michel Pereira. Marc-Andre Barriault, he's going to get the job done. He always moves forward. He's super aggressive. He always tries his best, and I actually rate that. So, yeah, give me Marc-Andre Barriault to get the job done by round 2 TKO. Bruno Silva's completely checked out. He's washed, and I'm pretty sure he doesn't want to fight anymore. So, yeah, I'm going to take the bull Barriault. Next fight on the card, Navajo Stirling versus Ivan Erslan. Look, Ivan Erslan came in off a KSW, got pretty much schooled by Cutelaba, who is good, but I just don't rate him to the level that I rate a Navajo Stirling. Navajo Stirling, very good, insane athlete, nasty striking, good accuracy, good power. Out of city kickboxing, he has the Izzy Dan Hooker style, decent takedown defense from what we've seen so far. Good knockout on the Contender Series. Was able to beat Tuko Tokos in his UFC debut, 30-27, easy win. And he's a great striker, natural athlete. Ivan Erslan, he's kind of stuck in the mud, plotty, just doesn't really have a lot to his game. And yeah, I think that Navajo Stirling stains him in round 1. One of the better Contender Series prospects off of last season. I think he comes in and gets his second UFC win here, and I think he gets the knockout this time in the first round. All right, our next fight on the card, we got Ion Cutelaba versus Modestas Bakauskas. Ion Cutelaba, he used to be just the Marauder, the Hulk. He just came through angry, slugging for the fences, no fight IQ. But recently, he's kind of turned it around. He's been fighting a little bit more intelligently, picking his shots a little bit better, has better defense. He's implementing the grappling. And we saw that against Erslan and Erslan. Ivan Erslan and Erslan. What do you know? But he showed a very well-rounded skill set in those fights, and he's looking to be improved even in his later years of his career. I mean, we remember his fights versus Magomed Ankalaev, just went in there, fucking gritting down on the mouthpiece, swinging for the fences, and eventually got countered and stained for it. He's taken, KO losses before as well. Was able to get some good wins throughout his career. You think back at the KO versus Khalil Roundtree. But look, I mean, Bakauskas, he's been okay in the UFC. Not really too many notable names. Tyson Pedro, Zach Pauga. I mean, I don't really take any merit into those wins. The KO loss versus Petrino doesn't look great in hindsight. And a win over Prachnio and Rafael Kakaria. Great knockout versus Kakaria, but we've seen that Kakaria is pretty susceptible to getting stained in the first. Not very good fighter. I actually rate the improvements that I've been seeing out of Ion Cutelaba at this point in his career, and I think he's going to be able to get the job done over Bakauskas. Bakauskas, he's technical and all, but Ion Cutelaba, now that he's actually more technical, using more grappling, game planning better, not being as sloppy, and he still has the aggression and the strength and the, just natural fucking brute force. Give me Ion Cutelaba to get the job done via round 2 TKO. Just kind of brute force marauder TKO against the fence. All right. Next fight on the card, we got Charles Radke versus Mike Malott. Mike Malott didn't look too great last time out against Trevin Giles. He was able to get the job done. Lost to Neil Magny before that. He had some wins in the UFC. I've never been too impressed by Mike Malott. He's a technical fighter, but fights super timid. He has good jiu-jitsu skills, but, when you're getting reversed and finished on the ground by Neil Magny, that's never a great look. The cardio is definitely something to be concerned about. Charles Radke, he's looked all right in the UFC last time out. He got a good win over Matthew Semmelsberger, knocked him out clean with a left hook, knocked out Gilbert Urbina with that same left hook. Did take the loss to Carlos Prates, but, I mean, look, Mike Malott is not the same striker. Nowhere near as powerful, nowhere near as accurate, smart with his shot finding ability as a Carlos Prates. And he's just not dangerous. He kind of just fights to survive on the back foot, takes no risk, very, very skittish. His footwork isn't very coordinated. He just kind of tries to run away. Give me Charles Radke to get the job done here via third round TKO. I think that Mike Malott, his style uses so much energy because he's just constantly backing away, constantly, having to defend pressure from guys because he just invites it in. Doesn't have very good ring generalship or footwork. And look, he just has zero power whatsoever. And in terms of the grappling, I think that Charles Radke, he's a good grappler as well. I think that they will actually end up canceling each other out. I think the majority of this fight will be striking, kind of like Mike Mallott's last fight and Charles Radke's last fight, actually. But yeah, I think Charles Radke is going to have the better cardio. I think he hits a lot harder. I think he's just more aggressive, better ability to pin someone against the fence and actually get a finish. Give me Charles Radke to get the job done via third round TKO. Mike Malott gets tired, gets backed into a corner. Charles Radke tees off and Mike Malott goes down. I think it's going to be a very similar vibe to Neil Magny getting the win over Mike Malott. I think Mike Malott will do good in the first round. He'll start to fade a little bit in the second. He'll be kind of winning, and then Radke will get a knockdown in the second round. And then that's when the whole ship is going to start sinking for Mike Malott. The pressure of the Canadian crowd is going to be on his shoulders. He's going to be backing away, running away, and then eventually Charles Radke is just going to tee off on him, get the job done that way. So yeah, give me Charles Radke, third round TKO. Next fight on the card, Kyle Propolec, who hasn't fought in the UFC in fucking 6 years, was 0-2 in the UFC, and lost another fight on the regional scene after that. Look, this is a layup fight for Benoit Saint Denis. Benoit, 5-fight win streak, nasty finishes over, Moises, Bonfim, who else? Frivola. He's beaten some really good guys. Took the loss to Dustin Poirier and Renato Moicano, but I'm just not taking a lot of stock into either one of those losses. I'm kind of glad he's getting a layup, though, because I was going to be picking Joel Alvarez to get a submission over Benoit, but that was a nightmare matchup. There's a lot more winnable fights for Benoit in the lightweight division. He has bad boxing, wasn't the best in terms of the Dustin Poirier fight once he got tired, And then in the Moicano fight, take from that what you will. I still kind of look at that fight in a weird way. Like, he wasn't able to get up. He took so much damage, like, within the first minute of that fight. He didn't really have time to warm up. He does like to warm up into his fights. It's not like he starts slow, but his whole thing is to just avalanche guys. And when he instantaneously gets that shut down, it's hard for him to have success, even though he did win that second round against Moicano. You know, Moicano, he was able to brush the body kick and then instantly get the takedown. Very smart, tactic there used by Moicano, but he's not going to have any issue easily destroying Kyle Propolec in the first round. Benoit Saint-Denis by submission. First round, he's going to knock him down with like a straight left, a head kick, and he's going to wrap him up. So yeah, give me Benoit Saint-Denis, round 1 submission. Any type of finish, really. He's going to dominate him round 1 easily. So yeah, easiest pick on the card, Benoit, round 1 finish. All right, our next fight on the card, we have Jose Aldo versus Aiemann Zahabi. Somehow Aiemann Zahabi is fighting, a top 10 fighter of all time in the fucking sports history, but it is what it is, and we're in Canada. Hopefully Jose Aldo can lock in and get the job done here in this one. The realistic, what should happen pick is a, Jose Aldo 30-25. I mean, these guys are the same age, and they are just nowhere near the same stratosphere in terms of the level of fighter that they are. Aiemann Zahabi is just an absolute jobber, win one, lose one here and there, just mid. And, Jose Aldo, we're talking about one of the greatest fighters to ever step foot into the octagon. But we've seen recently there is a recipe to beat Jose Aldo. You just gotta put the volume on him, you gotta be in and out, and you gotta shoot a lot of takedowns. And, we saw Bautista do it, we saw Merab do it. Even in moments in the Peter Yan fight, he was, having a lot of success controlling Jose Aldo. If Aiemann Zahabi goes for a Mario Bautista-like approach, there is a very high likelihood that he could get the job done. Of course, Fiorot is going to be in his corner. You got to imagine he's going to be training the absolute hardest he ever has for this. But the thing is that he just doesn't have an athletic advantage over Jose Aldo like a Mario Bautista did, which is really the only reason that Jose Aldo lost that fight. I mean, Jose Aldo lost that fight. I was rooting for him to win. I wanted him to win, but I do think he did lose that fight. But, he still made it very, very, very close. You could even make the argument that he should have. You can make the argument, I don't think he did, but you can make the argument and I'll listen to you. Aiemann Zahabi, I just don't see him chain wrestling Jose Aldo like that and holding him up against the fence. I mean, I know Bautista wasn't able to get him down, and Aiemann Zahabi obviously is not going to be able to take down Aldo, who has the best takedown defense in MMA history. Aiemann Zahabi's not going to be able to chain wrestle him. And on the feet, Jose Aldo should be able to school him. But, like I said, if you just put the volume on him, Jose Aldo, he's a guy that, he's always liked to rely on his speed, big moments, big shots. He's not always been a volume guy. And, against a Rob Font, against the Chito Vera, against a Pedro Munoz, where he can have his excellent defense and stuff like that, he can get away with it. But now that I'm actually talking about it, Aiemann Zahabi isn't even nearly as good as those guys. I mean, he did beat Pedro Munoz, looked good in that fight, but I'm just not ready to fucking write off Jose Aldo just because he, got split decisioned by Bautista. I'm not even going to try and manifest a fucking possibility that Zahabi wins this fight because that would be depressing as fuck. Goddamn Firas Zahabi's little fucking big nose little brother beating one of the goats of the sport in Canada. Why is Jose Aldo fighting Aiemann Zahabi? This is the most stupid fucking shit I've ever seen in my life. He should be fighting Henry Cejudo. He should be fighting Davidson Figueiredo. Fuck, I don't even care at this point. Give him just a crafty vet at bantamweight. Shit, give him a fucking rematch with Chito Vera for all I care. I don't care. It's just like, you're just doing him such a disservice. You're just disrespecting the legacy that he's already put out there for the company, all the work that he's already done for the UFC. You already gave him 2 fucking difficult matchups against guys where he was the fucking A side on both of those. And, young, hungry guys in Bautista and Martinez. Now you're giving him a guy that's in his same age range. Winnable matchup, I get it, but still, Jose Aldo should not be fighting this clown. Watch Aiemann Zahabi go out there and fucking pepper the jab on Aldo's nose, land a fucking uppercut, instantly shoot takedowns, gets him down. Surely not, right? But who knows? Jose Aldo might age 10 years overnight. We know the deal with Jose Aldo. I mean, he's nasty, nasty boxing, beautiful liver shots, good kicks, good knees. One of the best to ever do it. Impeccable takedown defense, the best ever in MMA. And Zahabi's just kind of mid. So, yeah, Jose Aldo should 30-26 him. I mean, we're talking about one of the GOATs here. And talking about one of the GOATs, Valentina Shevchenko versus Fiorot. Now, look, normally I don't give WMMA predictions, but I'm actually a fan of Valentina Shevchenko. Like, I think she's actually pretty badass. And I'm not even trying to be fucking ironic. Like, I literally think WMMA is cringe, bad to the bone, tough cookie, bro. What are you saying, man? You're not excited about Alexa Grasso versus Natalia Cristina da Silva? Please, dude, give me a fucking break. But Valentina's actually fucking cool. And, look, I think she's going to win this fight. Fiorot, she's athletic, and that's, really what she's using to win these fights. I mean, don't get me wrong, she's skilled and all, but, look, her size, her athleticism, that's the reason she's winning these fights. She's beat Rose. Who was it? Blanchfield that she beat. But that's such a high level of competition. It's such a differential in level of competition to a Valentina Shevchenko, who is, one of the best WMMA fighters of all time. It's going to be the exact same thing as Zhang Weili and Tatiana Suarez. Maybe not that much of a washout, but I think it's going to be similar. I mean, people were really confident that fucking Tatiana Suarez was going to be able to beat Zhang Weili. That was just insanity. Like, I knew Zhang Weili was going to fucking demolish that chick. And she did. And I think that, these type of WMMA fighters, these types of girls, Valentina, Zhang, Nunes, it's a different level than the rest of their competition. I mean, some of these girls there's just leaps and bounds. Even you look at the best fighters in the world now, Islam Makhachev versus even a guy like Paddy Pimblett, Arman Tsarukyan, Ilia Topuria. I mean, you can even go as far down as, Charles Oliveira, who he's already beat. There's still a closer skill differential than there is in these WMMA fights, where there's just huge gaps most of the times. And, look, Valentina's a underdog, just like Zhang was against fucking Suarez. And, I think that Valentina Shevchenko, she's going to be able to use her experience. She's a super sharp striker. She's got great fight IQ, except for the spinning heel kick against Grasso, which she has never done again. She's got excellent wrestling. She's been able to take down like all of her opponents and easily smudge them. Great kicks, good timing, speedy as fuck, even in her old age. Not old age. I mean, she's still, looking good out there. And, look, I mean, Marion Fiorot, unless she's just able to completely brute strength our girl Valentina, I think Valentina's going to be able to coast to a pretty easy decision. So give me Shevchenko 48, 47, 49, 46, but it's going to be clear. But I do think Fiorot will have some success, especially early. But Shevchenko, the championship caliber and the championship just level of competition that she's always had. Her skill set is so much more diverse. I mean, she has every strike in the book, great grappling. She's got submissions. She literally has everything in the book in MMA. She's like one of the most well-rounded and most accomplished, best MMA fighters, WMMA fighters of all time. So yeah, I'm going to be taking my girl Valentina to get this one done by decision. And finally, we move on to the main event of the evening, Jack Della Maddalena versus Belal Muhammad. And look, this fight has a lot of implications. It's very important. If Belal wins this fight, we will most likely see Islam Makhachev take on Ilia Topuria. I don't think that Belal Muhammad will accept a fight against Islam Makhachev. And if JDM wins, Islam Makhachev is going to vacate lightweight and probably move up to try to fight him for double champ status. So this is a very important fight. And Belal Muhammad is the type of guy to get a stinky split decision to save the fucking sport. I think Belal Muhammad, he's gone fully from his villain to hero arc. He's about to be the hero in this circumstance. He's going to get a decision win over Jack Della Maddalena, and we're going to be able to see Islam Makhachev versus Ilia Topuria. And look, aside from all of that, I really just do think that Belal Muhammad, I've underrated him greatly. I mean, I picked Leon to beat him, and I picked him to win by TKO. Not a good pick whatsoever. And look, I've overlooked him throughout his career, but if you look at the body of work that he has put in, he's done very, very good. The Wonder Boy win, Luque win. He faced some adversity early on in his career against, Luque in their first fight. Jeff Neal, that fight comes to mind, a pretty bad loss. But he's really been able to put it together. Even though Gilbert Burns did get injured in their fight, he did step into that fight on short notice, made it look pretty easy. Gilbert Burns hurt his arm shooting a takedown. Belal Muhammad stuffed it, and then he just went to work. Showed really good kicking in that fight, and I think he's going to be able to use his kicks a lot in this fight because Jack Della Maddalena does not check or block kicks very good or very often. In most of his fights, he's getting leg kicked, he's getting body kicked very, very often. Gilbert Burns used this a lot, and he even broke Jack Della Maddalena's forearm because of how many kicks he was landing. And, Belal Muhammad really showed that skill set in that fight. In his most recent fight against Leon Edwards, I like the forward pressure. I like the grappling that I saw. Leon Edwards, underrated grappler, even though he was able to get some scrambles off against Belal Muhammad. Still, Leon, I think, has always been underrated on the ground. Belal Muhammad really did dominate that fight with his takedowns, with his control, with his pressure. And aside from just the grappling pressure and his ability to just maintain top position, be smart, position over submission, and, staying safe, getting a decision win, he's also gone out there and gotten one of the wins that has really aged incredibly well against Sean Brady, knocking him out in the second round, really displaying his striking a lot more in that fight. I think that fight really was the turning point in his career where he started training with like Team Khabib and all these guys, and he really honed in on getting the belt. The Leon Edwards fight was a lot closer than people remember because I think the first round was very, very tight. And Leon, of course, won the third and the fifth. But I think that Jack Della Maddalena, the thing that's going to come and bite him in the ass in this fight is that his volume is just simply not enough. He's a great boxer. He's excellent in terms of the hands. I mean, he's got good counter shots. He's got good, slip and rip ability. Moving forward, he can piece up the most beautiful combinations into the body, with a mean shovel uppercut to the fucking solar plexus. I mean, he's just incredibly talented with his boxing, with his shot selection, with his hands, but not a lot of kicks. I think that's something Belal Muhammad, I think a weapon that would be good against Belal Muhammad would be, lots of leg kicks, try to chop down those legs so he can't shoot takedowns as easy. And because when you get into punching range with this guy, even in kicking range, he can grab your kick, take you down. And if you are in punching range with this guy, I mean, his takedown entries are just so slick. And in this fight, I really think it's going to look a lot like maybe Sean O'Malley versus Merab. O'Malley, he's in there, he's picking his shots, he's doing okay, but, Belal in this situation, as soon as JDM really just tries to get off with a mean combination, when he grits down, hook, body, upper, that's when Belal Muhammad's going to shoot a takedown. He's not going to fool around with the striking all that much. And let's just, be fair to him, his striking really has improved, especially offensively. And I think his kicking is going to heavily disrupt JDM's boxing pressure. I think, Belal is going to be using good footwork. When you look at that Gilbert Burns fight with JDM, I was really, really impressed with JDM throughout his entire, run up until that fight. And I even had money on him there against Gilbert Burns. Got him at good odds, like minus 115 before, people really put money on JDM. But, I had JDM in that fight. And the night of the fight, I was like, how did the judges have JDM down? JDM was like, marching him down, landing good shots with the hands. I don't know. It should have been 2-0 JDM, going into that third, or at least 1-1. But I rewatched that fight this week, and, I just did not like what I saw from JDM in that fight in retrospect. Not a lot of volume. Yeah, his pressure was good, but he was running into a ton of round kicks. He was running into takedown. I believe Gilbert Burns went 7 for 11. And that's Gilbert Burns, who looked dog shit and washed in his next fight. So, it's hard to see how that win really scales up. I think Belal Muhammad's not going to have any issue taking down JDM. Yes, Belal Muhammad is recovering from an injury. We've heard some rumors about how bad that did get. I'm not worried about it. Belal Muhammad is the type of guy where he has a bulletproof mentality. He's not going to let anything like that get in the way of his preparation. If he's not healthy to fight, I don't think he would fight. And I'm not super worried about that. JDM has been out for a long time as well with an arm injury because, Gilbert Burns broke his arm. I believe it got infected after the surgery. Very unfortunate because Jack Della Maddalena, he's a guy we wanted to see stay active. But he's coming in with over a year layoff. Belal Muhammad, he's been a little bit more active. And Belal, even though he's getting up there in age, it's kind of seeming like now is his prime because I feel like he's really starting to put things together as opposed to the beginning of his career, maybe like a Charles Oliveira, if you will. But Jack Della Maddalena, young, in his prime as well, physically for sure, just 28 years of age. But I think that the experience, I think that the occasion, kind of stepping in on short notice, maybe he wasn't fully prepared for this before camp, just in terms of, his plan for the future. I think it's going to be a little bit more than Jack Della Maddalena can handle in this spot. I think he's going to bite off a little more than he can chew. Belal Muhammad, he's the type of guy where he's always composed. He's always going to do what he's supposed to win fights. Smart fighter, doesn't take a lot of risk, and realistically, the only thing he has to worry about is the hands of JDM. And when these guys meet in the middle of the octagon, I don't think either of these guys are going to be really staying on the outside. I think Belal could utilize that a little bit more with the kicks. I think he'll try to bait JDM in and then take him down, pressure him against the fence where he can get the Dagestani handcuff and everything, kind of like how he did Thompson. But all in all, death, taxes, and Belal Muhammad by decision. I think we're getting another decision win from Belal Muhammad here. I think that people are going to be, kind of butthurt about it, kind of like the Sean O'Malley and Merab fight. JDM's going to be in there. He's going to be trying to, land good shots. I bet it'll probably hurt Belal to the body. Belal will wince, cover up, get a panic takedown at the end of the second or third round. JDM will win the round. But I really think that Belal Muhammad is going to get a little 48-47, maybe even a split decision. I don't think it's going to be dominant. I know for a fact JDM, he has good scrambles. He has good defensive grappling ability. But when you're talking about a guy like Belal Muhammad, who has been 5 rounds, he has been going to decision so many times, JDM, he's a guy that normally does finish up his fights early. I think he's going to be the guy getting tired here. I trust the experience, the cardio, the determination, the grit of Belal Muhammad here in this spot. And I think he's getting it done. Unanimous decision. Of course, the boxing is going to be an issue. It's going to be dangerous, but I think the kicks to the arms are really going to, hinder JDM's power. Really going to hinder that risk, slow him down. And like I said, in the Burns fight, he was doing a lot of pressing and, he was landing some shots on the guard, but just not doing enough damage for me to pick him against the Belal Muhammad here. Gilbert Burns was able to mix it up, really disrupted his boxing pressure. And if it wasn't for that Hail Mary knee after getting controlled at the beginning of that round, he would not have won that fight. And Gilbert Burns was gassed out and tired as fuck. Not just from the body shots in that fight. And Belal Muhammad is just not getting tired. Unless he's really physically hindered from what he went through when he had to pull out in December, Belal Muhammad gets this one done by decision. So, yeah. I'm rooting for Belal big time here, which is something I cannot believe I am saying. I've always been a hater. I've always, liked to make fun of Belal. But at this point, you kind of got to respect the work he is putting in. And, I've always picked against him. I've always doubted him. But I think this is actually a good spot for him to get the job done, get a nice title defense under his belt, and then we get to see Ilya versus Islam International Fight Week, and then we get to see Belal Muhammad versus Shavkat Rakhmonov, which I think is really going to be a high-level entertaining fight. Thank you guys for watching. If you agree or disagree with any of my picks, leave a comment down below, like and subscribe. Enjoy the fights this weekend, and have a great rest of your day.